Hello and welcome to this lecture on how body weight affects health. Things I hope you'll get out of this lecture: just understanding chronic diseases and other health conditions associated with overweight and in particular with obesity, as well as understanding some health effects associated with being underweight. Please be familiar with the term metabolic syndrome and how we diagnose it. And then also please become very familiar with all of the various ways that we can modify and affect our weight based basically on lifestyle, what we do with our bodies and the foods that we eat. So disorders associated with energy intake, being underweight is just as problematic as being overweight. When we are underweight, we are certainly at an increased risk for infection and illness. This is largely because when we are below a healthy body weight, the first thing that suffers is our immune system. The immune system is made up primarily of proteins, and so when we're underfed, we may begin to pull proteins from different parts of the body and break those proteins down to utilize some of the components of the proteins to convert into glucose to be an energy source to different cells. So rather than breaking down our body proteins to supply energy, it's preferable to just eat enough food to fuel the body. So when we start to break down our body proteins, we'll pull first from the immune system, which leaves us much more susceptible to disease and illness, and prolonged disease and illness because of a reduced ability to recover from the infection or the disease. As we saw in the previous lecture on energy balance, preferable weight gain would be consuming an extra 500 calories per day, definitely not exceeding an excess of 1,000 calories per day. This would be, again, remembering that 3,500 calories roughly makes up a pound of body weight. Consuming 500 to 1,000 extra calories a day would lead to a gain of about 1 to 2 pounds a week. It's recommended that if, in the case of weight, trying to gain weight, it's recommended to eat small meals frequently throughout the day, and to exercise moderately to maintain good health, but not to overdo it with exercise, because obviously extreme exercise or intense exercise or prolonged exercise would lead to further weight loss. And then on the flip side of the scale, there are certainly diseases associated with overweight and obesity. As we hold more weight on the body, we're at a higher risk for having conditions such as high blood pressure, heart diseases, diabetes, sleep disorders, osteoarthritis, gallstones, gynecological abnormalities, and of course obesity itself we know now to be its own metabolic hindrance on the body. This is perhaps a short list of chronic diseases associated with obesity. Again, many of these will hit the top 10 leading causes of death in the United States. All of these conditions would be improved with weight loss alone. So if anyone suffers from, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, osteoarthritis, sleep apnea, various types of cancers, depression, Alzheimer's, hypertension, dyslipidemia, weight loss alone would improve the condition of these diseases. And similarly, when someone becomes obese, if they're at a healthy weight and then they become overweight and then obese, the risk of developing these diseases becomes greater and greater. Metabolic syndrome is defined as a cluster of biochemical and physiological abnormalities, and these abnormalities are very much associated with the development of cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes. There are 5 conditions that have to be met simultaneously to diagnose metabolic syndrome. These are having an abdominal waist circumference of 40 inches or greater for men and 35 inches or greater for women. Also having triglycerides above 150 milligrams per deciliter. Also having high density lipoproteins below 40 milligrams per deciliter. Also having a high blood pressure that reads 130/85 or greater. Also having fasting blood glucose above 100 milligrams per deciliter. So all 5 of these conditions have to be met simultaneously, and then metabolic syndrome can be diagnosed. How can we treat obesity and metabolic syndrome? Ideally through lifestyle changes, and we'll explore those on the next page, the next several pages, and you can begin to ponder what those might be. Hopefully they're very obvious and straightforward. We do also try to treat obesity through medications as well as surgeries. All of these come with pretty serious potential side effects. You'll see under the surgeries listed a few different types of surgeries, and then many of the complications associated with these surgeries. And so for ease of viewing, I've separated the healthy lifestyle changes into a second lecture, so you'll see that following. But just a little preview, it's definitely through eating healthy and getting plenty of physical activity.